welcome to Book 101 Review. Book 101 is all about the books that I read for the last 40 years. And today I have my special guest. He's the author of the memoir, The Maniac with No Knees, no other than Mr. Tyler Kania.
Thanks for having me. I'm happy to be here.
Welcome to Book 101, Mr. Tyler, and can you please introduce more about yourself?
Yeah. Um, well, I'm a rugby player. I play fly half, which is a lot like quarterback. I had ambitions to play at the highest level, but as you kind of will come to learn, I ran into some unfortunate circumstances. I've also been a rugby coach that won conference championships. Um, I'm a cybersecurity salesman and a crypto entrepreneur, as well as an author. And I suffer from bipolar 1 disorder, which means I have severe manic episodes where I completely lose my mind and make lots of mistakes, as you might read about in my book. Um, that comes with suicidal depression. I've attempted suicide twice. Thankfully, I've survived both of them. And I've been institutionalized at a mental hospital where, I was finally um, told that I had bipolar and prescribed medication that saved my life. And, my book is about my journey through, undiagnosed bipolar. I've also ruptured both of my patellar tendons playing rugby. It's an injury that happens once for every 147,000 human years. And I've done it twice. That's kind of like, has the odds of discovering life on other planets.
Mm. Mr. Tyler Kania, thank you so much for sharing your memoir to the world. So, what is The Maniac with No Knees about, and what genre does it belong to?
Yeah, like I said, it's a memoir and it's about my life, as a rugby player, experiencing manic episodes after a ruptured patellar tendon. I traveled across the country. I almost died in the Grand Canyon. I moved home and made $250,000 by the age of 26, working at a cybersecurity company. But I was unhappy and my illness was crazy. I was living in Boston and I became really paranoid. Like I spilled some Sprite on my floor and, instead of buying paper towels, I bought 12 copies of the Boston Globe for like $35 to clean it up. When you're manic, you don't really understand how to do tasks. You don't really have any like risk aversion. You feel righteous, you feel powerful, you feel like your mind's working a million miles per hour. Um, and I realized that I something was wrong, so I moved home. I read 300 pages of literature a day, studied cryptocurrency at night, and at the end of that year, I tried to get a job, couldn't get a job, and I attempted suicide. I put a noose around my neck, and I realized after tightening it up a bit that my friend was getting married the next day. So I didn't want to ruin that for him. I figured I'd stick around a little longer. I hadn't played rugby by this point for like 4.5 years. And, a week after my suicide attempt, I attended a birthday party of a rugby player who got me to go and watch their exhibition match the following week. And I show up at this exhibition match with no, intention to play, but somehow I end up on the field with 10 minutes left and I assist the game winning score. And all of a sudden, rugby was back into my life. I started coaching a college women's rugby team and I led them to a championship. During that off season, I started a cryptocurrency company and I pitched it to all these venture capitalists, technologists, and even Kimball Musk at the largest cryptocurrency conference in North America. And I went home and I was really manic. I thought I was about to change the world. And I trusted this guy on the internet with my secret phrase to my cryptocurrency wallet, and I lost $450,000. The next day, I went to coach the women's rugby team again, and I was out of my mind. I was still manic. I was crazy, and I blew up the practice. And little did I know their old coach was forming a coup to get his job back. And so I lost that job. I got very suicidal. I kept a rope in my room in case I was ready to step off the chair. When I would walk my dog, I would see illusions of myself hanging from trees for many months. But eventually, that depression gave way to a manic episode, and I just decided to drive south. And I wanted to find a rugby job because I figured if I found a quick rugby job, then I wouldn't be so embarrassed to tell my friends why I left the old job, the old rugby position. Um, so I drove down to Memphis, Tennessee, got a job coaching inner city youth in the most dangerous neighborhood in America, Orange Mound, the first neighborhood built for the black man by the black man. It has the highest murder capital rate in the United States. In my fourth day there, I overdosed on medication. I basically had a panic attack and I took dozens and dozens and dozens of pills. And I had to be hospitalized with severe serotonin syndrome for 3 nights. And I got out of there, and after a month, my psychiatrist gave me some coaching. I went into the emergency room and I said, "Look, all I want to do is kill myself. I've tried before. I'm going to try again. Can you help me?" And eventually, they got me into the Institute of Living, one of the oldest insane asylums in North America. And that's where I healed. That's where I was finally prescribed the medication that saved my life. And that's where I was inspired by all the people that were suffering a lot worse for me, people with schizophrenia, narcissism. My roommate had aphasia, which is when you have traumas that make you unable to talk for long periods of time. And I got him to talk for the first time in several weeks, and we formed a friendship. And I left there, feeling better about myself. I got my life back together. Got a job at the largest cybersecurity company in North America. Um, Worked really hard to get back on the rugby field. And then, I was in the best shape of my life and I ruptured my patellar tendon again and went manic. I spent 3 nights unable to sleep because of the mania. And I just started telling my life story on Instagram. And, I was no longer ashamed of who I was. I no longer wanted to hide. And so I started telling my story and I had to be hospitalized. But when I got out, I had all this great encouragement. And so I decided to write this book.
And thank you for sharing to the world, Mr. Tyler. So, how did writing this memoir help you process your past experiences?
Um, Writing to me is like therapy. Um, all therapy is basically is a mirror for your thoughts. And, having to relive these experiences, having a structural editor who pushed me to, think about how I was making people feel in the moment. Um, all those things made me grow as a person and grow as a writer. And, if you're struggling, a struggle makes good literature. Honestly, most people want to feel emotion when they're reading. And, I've had lots of struggle in my life. And, this has been a great outlet for me to, put that out to the world.
So, let's talk about challenges and growth. What was the most difficult part of your journey to write about?
Um, the suicide attempts were tough. The way I made people feel was tough in certain circumstances. The way my job ended with the women's college rugby team, that was really traumatic for me. Um, and also, I was on, when you have a psychiatric illness, you it's very difficult to prescribe the right medication. Lots of people respond to different things. And, I cycled through over a dozen different medications. And, one in particular was an early stage trial antipsychotic that my psychiatrist got from the pharmaceutical sales rep. And this drug made me gay for 3 months. And I'm not gay. And I never was gay. And it was really traumatic to have these feelings when I not only was suicidally depressed, but I also was questioning, everything that I knew to be true in my life. When I stopped taking that medication, it went away, but that was really difficult to, admit on paper.
How did you overcome the challenges you faced during the events in the book?
Um, I just kept going. I made a lot of mistakes, and I made mistake after mistake, and I put myself down, pretty hard. Um, but each time I got back up, and I was fighting the idea that I needed help for the longest time. But when I finally got help, and it was exactly what I needed, it just felt like why didn't I find this sooner? Um, so I would say that definitely.
So, Mr. Tyler, what lessons do you hope readers take away from your experiences?
Um, a few things. I want the mentally ill community to know that they're not alone. I want the general public to know and understand what it's like to have a mental illness. And I want people to know that like people with bipolar have superpowers. We have heightened levels of creativity, curiosity, empathy, and objectivity. When we're manic, we don't care what people think, and we have increased motivation. So for all the bad stuff that comes with bipolar, there's a lot of good stuff too. And it's no wonder why, Winston Churchill, Vincent van Gogh, Ernest Hemingway, Selena Gomez, all are bipolar, right? We the way our illness manifests can have some good outcomes.
True. That's awesome. So, what are any moments, or were there any moments you initially hesitated to include in the memoir?
No, you know, once I decided I was going to do it, I realized that I couldn't hold anything back, and I'd be lying to myself if, I kept anything out because, my book is designed to make you feel and make you understand and make you know, what it's like to have a mental illness. And to, do a shortcut just didn't feel right.
So, let's talk about relationships and impact. How did the people in your life influence the events in the memoir?
Yeah, I mean, first, I'll say that I have a great support network. I have a great family. I have great friends. My rugby community has been huge. When I didn't have that rugby community, when I stepped away from the game, I realized how much of a void it had left in my life. And the people that I met at the mental hospital, who inspired me, who suffered worse than me, who, had seen their wives shoot themselves, who, had schizophrenia and heard voices every single day. Those people really made me feel like I needed to stand up for them because they were unable to stand up for themselves.
So, how has your sharing your story affected your personal relationships?
Um, I have a bigger network now. More people appreciate me. More people have empathy for what I've been through. Um, I've been really good at like putting my writing out on Instagram and letting people know about my mental illness. And it's been really encouraging to have the sort of support that I've got. But there's downsides to it, right? Like, when it comes to the job market, most people don't want to hire someone who is admittedly mentally insane. When it comes to finding a girlfriend, most girls don't want a husband who's mentally insane. I'm stable now, and it's a stigma that comes with what I've done. Um, but it's hard nonetheless.
Certainly. Was there anyone who played a significant role in your healing or transformation?
Yeah, my parents definitely, and my best friend Hunter. Um, he carried me through a lot of episodes throughout the book. Um, when no one wanted to hire me, he was a stonemason who worked for himself, and he hired me. And He didn't care that I was insane and wasn't able to follow his directions. He didn't care that, you know, he wasn't making money on his projects because he was going to pay me anyways. He didn't care that I was a shell of my former self because he loved me for who I am.
So, Mr. Tyler, if you could go back and speak to your past self, what advice will you give?
Just keep going. I've been through a lot, and a lot of it is embarrassing to think about, and it sucks that I had to go through all of these things, but they've made me a better person, and I'm glad I went through that struggle because I'm like a block of marble that got chipped down into a beautiful statue. The chips hurt, but at the end, it comes out beautiful. So I wouldn't take back, anything that I've gone through, and my former self. I would just say, keep going, bro. Like you're doing great. Like you're gonna figure this out eventually.
So, how about for the people out there suffering from mental disorder? What would be your advice?
Yeah, I think there's three things that if you're mentally ill, you kind of need in your life. Number one is a community to belong to. People that respect you and care about you, and you can just blow off steam with. You need a goal, something to wake up every morning to, something that is gonna push you to get better. And you need medication, right? Like, that's part of what comes with it. Medication and therapy. We're not like everybody else. Um, and certain things can really help us. Like if I didn't have lithium in my life, if I didn't have mood stabilizers and antipsychotics, I would be dead, right? So if you have those three things, you're on your way.
Thank you for your advice, Mr. Tyler. So, what will be your short term and long term goals in writing?
Um, I plan to write for the rest of my life. In the short term, I finished the first draft of my second book already. I'm planning to edit it over the next few months and get it out to the world. I'm hoping to continue promoting this first book. This is my baby. This is my legacy. This is everything that I'm about. I want everybody to see it. And, I'm going to keep pushing. I'm going to keep going on TV. I'm going to keep going on podcasts, keep going in magazines, book readings at libraries, everything. And in the long term, I just hope I keep putting out books. I hope it'd be awesome to put out a book a year, but, I understand that might not happen. And I want to keep growing my audience because I think I have a lot to say for the world.
Certainly. And good luck to your goals, Mr. Tyler, and looking forward for more and more empowering books to come. So, were there any books or authors that inspired your writing style?
Yeah. Um, I like to say that my writing is like a love child between Sylvia Plath and Jack Kerouac. Sylvia Plath taught me that mental illness can be beautiful, suicide can be beautiful, you know, it can be poetic, and to not feel ashamed about sharing it. To not feel ashamed about the highs and the lows, right? Like her book, The Bell Jar, um, the first half of it is so upbeat and happy and positive and all of this. And my book is a lot of the same. And then Jack Kerouac, right? Jack Kerouac was a manic athlete, who went on this cross country trip with his crazy friend and then sat down and wrote about it all at once. And I basically did the same thing. I went on my road trip across the country, got into all this mess, all this trouble, almost died. And, when I got back from it all, I was just like, I need to write, you know? My athletic career didn't work out, so it's time to write. So if you put Sylvia Plath and Jack Kerouac together, you get me, in my opinion. And that might be a little boisterous, but, I think it's true.
Very well said, Mr. Tyler. Very well said. So, what was your writing process like for this memoir?
Well, I started when I was manic, so I was working a million miles per hour, going off the notes app on my iPhone, not worrying about grammar or spelling or anything. Um, and then once I found out that I had what I thought could be a book, and I was no longer manic, it was about sitting down and getting it done, you know, getting a structural editor that I trusted, putting all the pieces together, thinking beyond the narrative, and I'm really happy with the way it came out.
Certainly. And congratulations for sharing your book to the world. So, before we wrap up our discussion today, Mr. Tyler, I'm inviting you to please do listen to my baby podcast, Mental Health 101, in its first season, People with Mr. Jim Smith. So, this is our first season. So, please do listen wherever you listen your podcast. So, how do you hope this memoir will impact readers who may have faced similar experiences?
Yeah. Um, so many of us are ashamed of what we've been through, ashamed of who we are, and I just want to show people that like you feel a lot better by being authentic and being true to who you are. And I really wish that more people would do it because it's the only way to break down stigma. It's the only way to get through taboo. Um, so I really think that, if more people can, put their truths out to the world, it would really benefit the general public. It would benefit the mentally ill, everybody. And, if you're not capable of doing that, that's okay. I understand. But just know that, my book is there as a companion so that you don't have to feel like the only one going through it. You're not alone. A lot of us feel that way. And so if I can save a life, that would mean the world.
Totally agree, Mr. Tyler, and thank you so much again for sharing your memoir to the world. So, can you please invite our listeners to support your book?
Definitely. Yeah. Hey, look, find it on Amazon. Go to my website, tylerkania.com. Find it there. And I hope you love it.
Yes, people, let's support Mr. Tyler Kania because if you support him, more and more and more empowering books to come. And we are looking forward for two more books to come. Mr. Tyler, you are most welcome to come back and let's talk about it on Book 101 Review. So, Mr. Tyler, thank you for your time.
Thank you. I appreciate it. Had fun.
More to come, people. See you soon. Again, Mr. Tyler,